Welcome to the PDX files. Each week we dive into the weird and the unexplained here in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. My name is Peej.
And I'm back.
And Mac, for this week, we're keeping it in our region again, in the Pacific
Yes,
Northwest. And this one actually
taking
is
it.
happening, or something that happened in Portland, Oregon. So definitely keeping it to the title of the show, the PDX files. So I'm looking forward to this one. So this one, uh, again, I didn't watch the video. I only looked at the timestamps. So I'll be watching this at the same time as you, learning about this Polybius, which is supposedly a video game that it was pretty deadly, and we'll learn about it with this video. You ready?
I'm ready to dig into this big time.
All right, here we go. And there's a warning here on the screen, folks. So please, please be mindful.
Watch out. It's nothing to do with like the what's it like the ring video. It's
Now,
fine. It's fine.
In 1981, an arcade in Portland was the scene of countless gamers coming down with migraines, having heart attacks, seizures, and strokes. Local teens were suffering from amnesia,
Aneurysms.
hallucinations, all due to a mysterious game that seemed to arrive out of thin air. The game was called Polybius. And even though playing the game was dangerous, it was highly addictive and caused some teens to become hyper aggressive. Fights started breaking out at the arcade. One player was stabbed to death, all traced back to people who played Polybius. Now, why would the government allow the public to play such a dangerous game? Well, because the government created it. Let's
what?
find out why.
Hmm.
If you've never heard the urban legend about Polybius, here's how it goes. In 1981, a Portland arcade received a video game called Polybius that had gameplay unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. The player would stare at random geometric patterns and strange shapes, causing them to fall into a sort of hypnotic state. The game was known for psychedelic images, unsettling soundtrack, and subliminal messages. And if you played Polybius, it could cause all kinds of physiological effects: amnesia, anxiety, night terrors, aggression, insomnia. It could also cause physical effects like migraine headaches, nausea, vertigo, even heart attacks and strokes. Polybius was created by a company named Sinneslöschen, which in German roughly translates to sense deleting. And after playing, two Portland teenagers disappeared without a trace. Now, some say they were abducted, others say they were recruited. Whoa. Now, this game was so addictive that players would line up around the block and get into physical fights in order to play it. People reported that the Polybius machines were watching players and collecting data about them. And that data was periodically retrieved by men in black suits who serviced the machines. Now, the story goes that these men in black could change the game's attributes in order to elicit different responses from the players.
Mind control?
Yep.
Grab my hat, please. Thank you.
The game was only released in 2 arcades, and only for a short time. Then it disappeared as quickly and as quietly as it arrived, never to be seen again. Now, this is an urban legend, and it's a good one, but how much of it is true?
I mean, just based on its face, I could see that being a government experiment, putting it into a couple places. It said it was in two places.
Two places.
The addictiveness to it, I don't know. Possibly depends on kind of what they were trying to do with the imagery, and it talked about certain, was it like fractals or something? It was saying, it was certain how some of the images were portrayed. Sorry, go ahead. You okay?
Well, yeah, I mean it's shapes. I don't know if it's fractals, but shapes.
Yeah, and he said unsettling music. I mean, I don't know what that means exactly. I mean, I was pretty unsettled by The Legend of Zelda, some of the music in that. I didn't like start beating up people to try to play the game, but I would not be surprised at all if this was. And again, we're at very early stages of this video, but I would not be surprised at all if it was a government kind of thing. Let me just say that. I think it totally makes sense.
Well, several episodes ago, we did tackle the conspiracies that ended up being true, and
Yes.
we
Yep.
already we were introduced to the reality that the government can do some crazy shit.
They're fucking with us. There's no doubt about that.
All right, we'll continue here, and I think this next part here is kind of a long bit. So for those watching, I'm sorry, listening on the podcast, please note that it's not that we're trying to be quiet. We need to be quiet. Here we
I'm
go.
not going to be quiet. I'm going to be saying things.
All right, here we go.
I'm going to be that fish.
More than most people think.
But it wasn't just any game.
Oh, I love that movie.
To get to the truth of the story of Polybius, you have to dig pretty deep. And if you Google Polybius, you'll get a bunch of blurry images of an arcade cabinet. There's no way to tell if these are photoshopped or an actual physical cabinet existed. If one did exist, I doubt there's photos of it. Also, there's only one known picture of the game's title screen. The screen cap shows the name of the game, the year, copyright, and says it was developed by a company named Sinneslush. Now, in German, this translates to sensory deprivation or sense deleting, but it's not a good translation, so probably not a native German speaker. There's also no evidence of a company ever existing in Germany with the name Sinneslush. No company anywhere had that name, so no help there. Now, the font used for the title itself is actually unusual for the time. The memory required to produce this effect was pretty significant in the early 80s. Only games from huge companies like Nintendo and Williams were known to put so many resources into a title screen. And the screen font is very close to a font used by Williams, but a couple of letters don't quite match. So again, not much to go on. Now, there are a few sources that say Polybius was mentioned on Usenet as early as 1994. Now, for you young bucks, Usenet newsgroups were a type of global message board used during the early days of the internet. And if something was happening on the internet, there was news. Google has archived messages going back to the beginning of Usenet, but searches for Polybius come up empty. And what about the gameplay itself? The sources claim that Polybius was vector-based, similar to games like Tempest or Battlezone. Now, Tempest was a huge game at the time.
I remember Tempest. I do remember Tempest.
It's reasonable that people who were playing arcade games in that time remember Tempest. I definitely do. And Battlezone was used by the military as a training tool for tank crews. The Army's version was called the Bradley Trainer. So the government creating arcade games, that's absolutely true. Now, what about the story that people would get sick playing vector-based games like Polybius or Tempest, or actually die after playing certain games? Turns out, this is also true.
An open mind is easy to expand. It might even be a good idea to heed the advice that one game player carries on his shirt. Maybe it's a warning.
In 1982, 14-year-old Michael Lopez was playing Tempest with friends at the Malibu Grand Prix Arcade in Beaverton, Oregon. He began to feel a weird sensation in the back of his head, and he started losing his vision. He became dizzy, stumbled outside the arcade, and threw up all over the parking lot. He then collapsed a few blocks from his home, screaming in pain. Now, apparently, the game's flashing lights and visual effects triggered a migraine or a seizure. Okay. And then there's the case of Jeff Daly, who died after playing the game Berserk that same year. Daly had an unknown congenital heart condition. Apparently, the stress of trying to break the game's high score triggered a heart attack. Same for Peter Bukowski of Calumet City, who also died of heart failure while playing Berserk. Also in Calumet City, two teenage boys got into a fight over a game, and one stabbed the other to death. And then there's Brian Morrow playing Asteroids for 28 straight hours trying to break the record. He got sick and collapsed. Now, Morrow was pounding Coca-Colas for hours, so it's understandable that he gets But when these stories stack up, you can see how they can lead to paranoia about the effects of playing video games. Now, it seems but in the early 80s, video games were a new phenomenon. And like always, parents are suspicious of anything new, fun, and seemingly addictive, like playing video games. Now, can you really blame them? Now, a game developer's job is to make a game so fun and immersive and addictive that you want to throw money at it. I mean, that's just as true now as it was back then. Whether it's putting coins in a slot or microtransactions in a mobile game, the psychology is the same. Game companies want you to give them money, and they want to give you hits of dopamine. Cool. Role of a game company or any corporation is to make money. So nobody disputes that. They're transparent about it. But people tend to be more suspicious of the government than they are of corporations because the government...
So transparent.
No. Now, do government agencies really conduct top secret operations using video games at arcades?
That's a rhetorical question, right?
It is. Because the answer is yes, they did.
That's not
We'll
surprising.
pause here for a second.
That's not surprising at all. And yes, that the whole point of those games is to make them as addictive as possible from a marketing standpoint to get in revenue and everything else like that. Like I spent like But I don't do that anymore. I completely shut myself off from these like weird app kind of video games. Like, I think I told you about those back in the days. Like I spent like a couple $1,000 over a couple of years on it. It's just like, it's like a ton of money, but it's enough,
What,
right?
like
Where
on what? Like Candy Crush?
no, it wasn't that. It was some sort of zombie video game kind of deal. And like I'd wake up like at 3 in the morning to be a part of this global kind of effort. And there's some people, I mean, I got to know some of these people. They were very nice, all over the world. And you
Oh,
sort of get
hey,
into it,
sure,
right? Yeah. So
sure.
you do some of that stuff and you sort of get into it and it becomes addictive. It's like at some point it's just like, yeah, no, this is weird. I don't need to be spending money on this anymore. So I'm glad that I don't and I won't ever again. And I think even it goes into video games that you would buy or in video game systems. Like, I wasn't into so much like those kind of like some of the games that they've been showing. I was more into like the Legend of Zelda video games and the sports video games that I would get into. But it's all the same. I mean, it really doesn't matter where you're at with it. It's all to get you sort of drawn into
Yeah, sure.
whatever world they're trying to get you into. And would the government do something like that? Hell yes, they're gonna. They obviously they're doing it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're not doing it today.
Yeah, I think, with regard to the arcade games, obviously it's a little simple, well, not simpler, but it's a lot more easily accessible to do now to just be in a video game, in a community, in some sort of like online, everybody's on this, part of a team and you're playing the game simultaneously and you could be in multiple parts of the world. And to your point, or actually the point made by the video is that these video game companies, obviously it's like in-app purchases. So, hey, you want to get in a sword? It's going to cost you $2.99 to get to arm your character with a powerful sword or whatnot. And that's obviously in the arcade era, it's a bunch of quarters. Like you're just dropping quarters. You're getting more. You're changing more dollars into quarters and spending more of your money. And then there's a social aspect of it back then. That's obviously now again there's a lot more anonymity and you can kind of hide behind an avatar. Back then, you're there at the arcade with your friends, with your friends' friends and strangers, and it's all about that high score and chasing that dragon, right?
Yeah, and just sort of just like being a part of like this new cultural influence, and like for a lot of it, growing up for me, and you're not that far away from age as far as I am. It's like go outside and play. Okay, that was great for a while, but then now we see other neighbors and other kids who have these video games, and there's these arcades. I want
Right.
to do that, and
Yeah.
sort of get involved. And I would not. I seriously doubt if there weren't some games that weren't monitored. If that makes any
Sure.
sense.
I mean, it's highly plausible, right? Like if they're talking about like there could be cameras inside the box, that the game comes in that's monitoring your eye movements, your strategy and whatnot. So it's interesting.
That's scary.
Um, all right. Well, I'll continue this. I did not stop this at the timestamp, but I thought that it was getting too long. So we'll continue.
It was a pretty good stop. Okay, good deal. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
The FBI's records indicate that the agency actually was monitoring and raiding arcades in Portland at the same time that players were collapsing.
Mm,
Arcades had reputations of being places for drug activity, gambling, and petty crime like pickpocketing. Now, though the stories were sensationalized in the media, of course, people really were gambling over pinball games. Kids
Oh, yeah.
buying and smoking weed in arcades. So how does this factor into the Polybius legend? Well, during one sting operation, the FBI placed microphones and cameras inside video games to gather
There you go.
evidence on criminal activity. One of the games they used was Tempest.
Tempest again.
Yep. Now, the FBI didn't care that Tempest was a vector game. All they cared about was that the cabinet had large bevels and a lot of room behind the glass. Perfect for cameras. And this FBI operation was so extensive that in the early 80s, there was actually a shortage of Tempest cabinets in the Pacific Northwest because The feds were all over it. And apparently the feds weren't very discreet about picking up their camera footage. Agents dressed in suits and ties would show up at an arcade, open the machine, and pull out videotape and then leave. They didn't even bother with the coins.
Do nods.
Okay.
Why would you go in a suit and tie?
Mind control
Come
experiments.
on.
Can that possibly be true?
That's another rhetorical question. Of course it's true.
That's true.
The CIA became convinced the communists had found the key to brainwashing. Now the Americans had to unlock the mystery of mind control.
Early in the Cold War, the CIA was convinced that communists had discovered a drug that would allow them to control human minds. In response, the CIA began its own secret program called MKUltra. The goal was to find a mind control drug that could be weaponized against enemies. MKUltra, which operated in the 1950s and 60s, was created and run by a chemist named Sidney Gottlieb. Now, some experiments were covertly funded at universities and research centers, while others were conducted in American prisons and in detention centers in Japan, Germany, and the Philippines. And subjects endured psychological torture ranging from electric shock to very high doses of LSD. Now, Gottlieb realized that mind control was a two-part process. First, you had to destroy the existing mind. Then you had to find a way to insert a new mind into the void. Now, the CIA didn't get too far creating minds.
Manchurian
Hell of a
candidate.
job destroying them. The top secret nature of MKUltra makes it impossible to measure the human cost of the experiments.
Why is that?
Oh, because the CIA destroyed the files.
Yeah, that doesn't sound legal.
It's not.
That's your government, people. Enjoy.
Now, we don't know how many people died during MKUltra, but we know some did. And many lives were permanently destroyed. And the US government has been experimenting on people against their will for as long as the government has existed. So it's not far of a stretch to think they would use video games for this purpose. Maybe they,
Yep.
They have.
maybe they are.
They are.
Stop that for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that that the government MO kind of things that they're doing has changed at all in the last since 1970. Was it 1930 to 1970 or whatever it was, that was? Of course, they're doing it. I don't know if it's all necessarily against people's will, but it's certainly a scam in a way that they're convincing people to join, even if they're not being forced into it. Absolutely. That kind of stuff is going on and will continue to go on so long as there is this power dynamic and a paranoia between different countries, and how do we get over on somebody else. MK Ultra, like even like the Stanford experiment, there's different things that sort of go into this like mind control and deprivation kind of situation that they're looking into. And even now, I think they're trying to recruit people now, kids and people who are more have the predilection, the ability to do it on the remote viewing
Right.
stuff. It's like I think it goes. They've always been interested in the psychic realm of things, and I think that says to me that there is something behind that. It's not just like some bullshit. Are we bending spoons? No, but maybe. I don't know. I mean,
Who knows?
like, who knows? It's like it's that the government spent this much money on it, and there's this much smoke around it. I mean, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, with regard to, well, a couple of things here. Obviously, there's when you add desperation into the mix, there will always be a line of people. There would always be a line of people who would agree to some sort of experiment, whether they know that they're
Yeah.
agreeing to an experiment or they were,
Or they don't, yeah.
there was some obfuscation in play. And then two, our government is going to want to be ahead of the other governments in some way. So I mean, they're
motivated. Yeah,
they're motivated to making sure that there's that they're ahead on a particular technology or methodology or whatnot. So yeah, and you've got a public that could easily be coerced and can easily be fooled, right?
manipulated.
Of course,
Absolutely, yeah.
and then of course, the technology now exists. I mean, it existed back then. It's even more. I mean, like right now, this camera that I'm using for this broadcast, who knows if that's if that's not attached to some sort of other
It's
feed.
Donald Trump watching us right now.
So, anywho, all right, we'll continue here.
What the United States government did was shameful, and I am sorry.
Now, these stories are all true, but none of them
I
are
don't
actually
believe him.
connected to a game called Polybius. No such game has ever been found. And if you find a game called Polybius, it's either fan-made or it's a hoax. Freeware developer Rogue Synapse is known for creating fictional arcade games like the one from The Last Starfighter. They created a game named Polybius in 2007, and their version attempts to recreate the gameplay described in the urban legend, including psychedelic visuals and subliminal messages. It's pretty creepy. It's kind of fun. I'll link it below. You can play. It's free.
Thanks, I'm good.
Coward. Oh,
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the fish.
in the 80s, where an intergalactic space force uses a video game to recruit
It is an interesting movie, though.
leaked into the Polybius legend. Allegedly, players were disappearing, and it was said they were either abducted by the government or were actually recruited by the government.
If they're good enough.
I've seen them come and I've seen them go, but you're the best, my boy. Light years ahead of the competition.
Thanks.
So the name Polybius was probably chosen specifically to troll people who were into conspiracies.
What?
Polybius was a Greek philosopher born in 200 BC in Megalopolis, and he's known for puzzles and cryptography. And you might have heard of the Polybius square, which is a type of cipher named for him. Polybius
I
also
have not.
said you should never believe anything unless it could be verified with hard evidence and witnesses.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think whoever started this story was trolling us. Now, the urban legend of Polybius emerged in February of 2000 when a listing for the game showed up on coinop.org, a website that covers arcade games. Now, the entry for Polybius listed the game as having been copyrighted in 1981, but no copyright exists. And it talks about bizarre rumors and says the game's history is unknown. The person believed to have created the post and this entire legend is Kurt Collar, the owner of CoinOp. After CoinOp created their listing for Polybius, Collar tipped off GamePro magazine about it. Now, GamePro referenced Polybius in an article about secrets and lies in video games. And as to whether Polybius was a secret or a lie, GamePro said the story was inconclusive. That was a big deal. In the early 2000s, GamePro was one of the largest gaming magazines in the country, so this generated interest. A few months later, the story landed on Slashdot. And if you remember the internet in the early 2000s, a mention on Slashdot was a huge deal. A legend was born. Now, since then, Polybius has been all over the media, the subject of countless investigations. It's even been referenced in pop culture.
Never saw this one before.
When an unsolved mystery gets as much attention as this, there's going to be people claiming that they were involved. One notorious hoaxer is someone named Stephen Roach, who posted on CoinOp that he worked on the game.
Did he?
No, his story has been investigated and debunked, but it got him plenty of attention. And if Kurt Collar invented the story to drum up traffic for his website,
Work like a charm.
worked like a charm.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, there could be, it could just be capitalistic endeavors going on there, right? It could just be that. But it does seem to me like, even if it's not Polybius or Polybius, that there could be other video games, I think, that have been used against the populace, I guess, especially, certain age ranges. It could have originally been as a reason to, catch people who really are evil. Yeah, it could be like all well-intentioned and at the very beginning, but at the end of the day, if you give the government too much leeway in some of the stuff and ignore all the evidence that suggests is like, hey, yeah, they've been doing this in other areas. I would say that maybe it's not this one, maybe it is, but I would say that it's definitely within the realm of possibility that this kind of stuff is going on then. And maybe not in arcades, but maybe now in the online space going on now as well. Certainly to monitor the American people and others to try to figure out. It could be, again, well-intentioned stuff. So, I mean, they be a little bit nefarious, but you have to sort of accept that, I guess.
Yeah, we have to accept it, and we also have to accept that the definition for well-intentioned can vary.
Yeah, it could still be nefarious.
It could still be very nefarious. And,
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes the ends will justify the means. And so it's like, am I going to be afraid of the government? I mean, I'm trusting the government, I mean, to some degree, but certainly I also of this on the side of like, well, shit, yeah, do the experiments if it's gonna give us the edge in some way. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's kind of giving a little bit of like those. You've heard of the movie, and I think it's based on the book called Ender's Game, right?
Mm, mm-hmm.
Premise of it
Yeah.
for those who've not seen it is that of course it's there's these groups of kids that end up have thinking that they, well, this spoiler alert, thinking that they were playing a simulation of a game, but it was actually ended up being like the actual war that they were fighting and won on behalf of the human race. But so again, it's like okay, going back to what you were talking about, well intentioned, if the goal is to again give us the edge, whether it's against enemy nations or God forbid an alien invasion that the government is planning for right now, yeah,
Right.
recruit those freaking last starfighters, I tell you.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be me because I don't have enough motivation for any of that to save the human race. But yeah, I think that it's good to have the critical mindset on any of the stuff that either we post or anybody else posts, and sort of take it all with a grain of salt, right? And sort of make up your own mind on it, but really consider and look at different sources. Like just because we saw, you looked at the Y files or the things that you've looked at previous to this video. It's like look at it yourself, make up your own mind. Does it make sense? Maybe, and then you can really consider that. And I think so. We're trying to get anybody to do that. We've had some recent, relatively recent comments, which is nice to see. By the way, I haven't been asking. I did in the past, but I'm really glad to see people sort of commenting on some of the posts. And I want you guys and gals to continue to do that and sort of put your own mindset into it, whether or not it's within our purview. Like we agree, it doesn't matter. Let's just like sort of talk about it. I think it's a really good thing to do.
I agree. Well, folks, if you enjoy this content, please give it a like and share it across your socials to help get the word out about our show. If you hadn't already done so, please subscribe, and on YouTube, hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on future episodes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.